Hey, we're live. We're live everywhere. Having a cocktail in a can because I've decided that this is, instead of being the shamanic coffee hour, since it's the afternoon, I'm not drinking coffee at the moment. So I'm just going to adjust my camera here. I'm not drinking coffee at the moment. Decided we'll call this the Metaphysical Cocktail Hour. Anyway, I hope everybody's having a good weekend. I'm having a delightful weekend. Yesterday, I went to a place called the Coastal Maine Botanical Garden, which is obviously in Maine. It's on the coast. Maine has, oh, hey, here's my excellently divine friend, Brienne. Hello, welcome, welcome. Having a Maine Craft Distillery Blue Shine Lemonade this afternoon because I'm calling this Metaphysical Cocktail Hour because it's in the afternoon. I'm not drinking coffee, having a little bit of having a little bit of a drink. It's okay. Relax and be yourself. So anyway, yesterday, hello, good afternoon. Yeah, these are delicious. If you've never had one, they're quite the tasty little beverage. Yeah, yesterday I had a fantastic day. Went to the Coastal Maine Botanical Garden, which is up in Booth Bay. It's up in Booth Bay Harbor, Maine. Booth Bay Harbor is one of my favorite places. My grandfather lived there for a short period of time when he was a boy, and I used to go there when I was a kid. In fact, they're probably still relative. My grandfather is one of 9 kids, so I have a really big extended family, and so probably still relatives living in the area that I don't really know. But spent a lot of time there as a kid. Love going up there. It is a little bit touristy, but that means there are really good restaurants. Had a really good brunch yesterday. Then went to this botanical garden, and there are a lot of really great things about it, including they have these ginormous troll sculptures. So the first part of it is gardens, and they have amazing gardens and water features and all this stuff. And then the rest of it's kind of wooded, and you can hike around through the woods, and they have these giant troll sculptures made out of recycled wood throughout the woods, and I like that a whole lot. And you can even hike down to the water on the backside. It's faces Knickerbocker Island, I believe is the island that it's facing off the coast. But just what a lovely day. Hello, happy Sunday. Yes, this is a self-love Sunday sermon. Welcome. I won't be too sermony, I promise. It's not my style. Just gonna talk. I'm gonna talk about self-love today because it's critically important. It's critically important to me. It's something I've been talking about for a long time. It's an important part of my journey and an important part of client work that I do, and work with my students that I do, and this work that I do. Oh, good. Hola, welcome. Yeah, I know. I normally do these during the week, and the only time I have during the week, it may be different once my kids go off to college in about a little over a month. But the only time I have during the week really is early in the morning, my time. So I know that doesn't work for everybody. So I'm trying to be a little bit better. And also why I kind of renamed this to the cocktail hour, because I'm having a little afternoon drink. I was just outside doing yard work, and it's a little warm. I'm not gonna lie, it was a little bit warm, but it's fine. It's fine. I have more to do, but I use an electric lawnmower, and it has batteries, and I can't do my entire lawn in one pass. I have to do half of it and then recharge the batteries. So anyway, good time for a break. Good time to talk to you all. I'm happy so many people could make it this afternoon. We got people in all the different channels, people on TikTok. And I'm going to talk about self-love today. And I've talked about love a lot, and I'm going to continue to talk about love a lot. It is literally my favorite topic and incredibly important. And I'm going to talk about self-love and why it is so critically important, not only for you to love yourself, but to how you show up in the world, and how something like self-love can affect the world we live in for the better. So, yes, welcome from Canada. How's the weather in Canada, by the way? It's been we've had some rather warm weather here in the Northeast past few weeks. It's starting to get sort of normal, like what we'd expect July to be like normally for Maine, like in the 80s and that sort of thing. But we've had it, close to 100 with very high humidity a few days, and that's been hot. So let's talk about love. Why not? Let's talk about love and self-love, especially. Okay, yeah. Last week was cooler, so hopefully, I think we're getting some of that cool weather over the next few days. So that'll be nice. I don't mind the heat so much, but it makes it hard to sleep sometimes. That sort of thing. In the um, 10 to 14 C. Okay, yeah, that's pretty comfortable, I would say. Um, so anyway, um, let's talk about love. Let's talk about what it is. When I talk about love and any of these things, I'm talking about from a spiritual perspective, not what we typically think of, at least in the culture I grew up in. When I think about love, I think about like Valentine's Day, romantic love, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's just generally not really what we mean by love in the spiritual world, because romantic love tends to be rather transactional. Again, I'm not criticizing, it's just how it is, right? I was watching, I follow a biblical scholar named Dan McClellan on TikTok and other channels, and he was talking today about marriage, and he was saying he is a biblical scholar. He reads biblical Hebrew, biblical Greek, probably Aramaic. He's published, he's a PhD, he's published all kinds of stuff. And, he goes out and he debunks a lot of things that people say about the Bible. Not that the Bible, in my opinion, should be the sole source of spiritual truth. And for some people, it is not a source of spiritual truth. But people generally use the Bible to justify a lot of things, and understandably so. And the same is true for doctrines and other religions as well. And one of the things that people have done is talk about how the Bible defines marriage, which it doesn't. And which, the only way that it talks about, it's not consistent, it's not univocal, that's one thing. But the other way that the way that it most consistently talks about things like marriage is about property transactions, about one man selling women, either, sister, daughter, whatever, to another man. That's it. Other than that, there's a lot of real inconsistency. And the concept, the concept we have, a lot of the concepts we have that people will say, oh, this goes back to biblical times or whatever, really are brand new things. And we're talking like 19th century. That's really recent history in the realm of those things. But I'm not going to use that as any sort of definition of what I'm talking about when I talk about spiritual love. What I'm talking about with spiritual love is I'm talking about complete acceptance of another, or anyone for that matter. So here's the thing. So I'm going to break it down a little bit, and hopefully this makes things a little bit clearer. You don't have to read anything, and you don't have to believe anything that I say. You can observe how the universe works. You can look out your window and see what's going on. You can look at, with our limited human abilities, we can look at how things are in the universe. If the universe is all that we can experience currently, and we agree that it comes from some source, whether that is a spiritual source or whatever there was before the Big Bang, or whatever your viewpoint is, not preaching any religious standpoint here, but we could agree maybe that the universe comes from a single source and that it expanded either 14 billion, now they're saying maybe more than double that, years ago. What does it do? What does the universe do? Well, it contains everything, right? It contains everything. It's neutral towards everything. You might say, oh, the universe has been really cruel to me, or the universe has been really good to me, or, whatever. Those are value judgments. What I'm saying is you exist. You exist. The universe has made space for you, or the universe has space for you. By that virtue alone, you have every right to everything that everyone else has. That is a natural law. That's a natural right. Every sentient being exists. We don't think of that as a miracle because it's our everyday reality, but the fact that you exist is miraculous. The fact that DNA-based life even exists is miraculous. The fact that you as an individuated consciousness exist in the way that you do at this moment is miraculous. You are no less a part of source than anyone else. We're all a part of the same universe. We all exist. The universe has space for us. I call this an observable quality of source. This is love, right? The universe says, go for it. You're it. You exist. You are how you are. You are what you're like. You are, and there is no other individuated consciousness just like you. You're completely unique. You live in a unique reality. You use words in a completely unique way than I do. You have completely unique experiences. There has never been another you. There never will be another you. You may reincarnate if you believe in that, or live in life after death, but there will never be a single set of experiences like you have had. And the universe has space for you. So when human beings say you're bad, or you don't have the right to exist, or for whatever reason, whatever our bigotry, whatever our prejudice, whatever, we are in the wrong. We are bucking the natural order. We are bucking source. We're bucking God. We're bucking the universe, how the universe works, right? We are not being in harmony. Hey, woman, I love that. I'm going to use that. We are not living in harmony. We are not living under natural law when we reject other sentient beings. We think they have no right to exist, or we think they are less than, or we think that they are less deserving of human kindness or less deserving of love, right? So my message is, I don't care who you are. I don't care what you do, what you've done, how much money you have, your ethnic background, your religious beliefs, your education, your anything. You deserve more love, not less. That is my belief. I will cling to that to the day I die. Okay. So that's love. Love is acceptance. I accept you. I give space for you to exist just as you are. Because who am I to say that you have no right to exist? Who am I to say that you are less than? That is an ungodly, undivine, unsourceful position to take. And it only comes out of ignorance and fear when it rears its ugly head. It's really challenging in this day and age. I recognize that it's challenging because there is a lot of hate. Hate has been emboldened. There's a lot of, and it's easy to hate the haters back. It's easy to, feel like we need to protect ourselves. I understand that. I do. I understand that fully. But I don't think that hate is ever really going to counter hate. We have to find a better way. Do you have an answer for it? Not at this time. I'm working on it. Love's really my only answer. Maybe it's not enough, but I'd like to find out. I'd really like to find out if it is enough to be less hateful in this world, to lead by example. So let's talk about the topic of today is self-love a little bit. So, if we have hatred for others, we're not living we're not living according to natural law. We're not living according to observable qualities of source. If we aim at hatred or dislike or non-acceptance at ourselves, it's the same, right? There's no difference between you and I. The difference between you and I is perceived. That's it. We're the same being. I'm sorry to say. Apologies. I'm sure you're better looking than I am. But apart from this physical appearance, apart from me currently experiencing life as an individuated consciousness and you experiencing life as an individual consciousness, underneath it all, we all come from the same source, right? Whether that's aliens or God or whatever existed before the Big Bang, or if we're living in a simulation, whoever programmed the Matrix, we all come from the same source. We're all the same stuff. Every atom in our body is made out of the same stuff, out of the center of stars. The molecules, the atoms and molecules in your body was born out of the belly of stars that exploded billions of years ago. Same is true for me. It's pretty amazing when you think about it. I saw a really cool thing by Neil deGrasse Tyson earlier that melted my brain a little bit, and I don't quite know how to explain it yet because I don't have the physics knowledge or whatever to explain it. But he was saying there is a theory, there's a current theory, requires some work, but there is mathematics around it that says that there basically every electron in this universe is the same electron, meaning every electron particle that is in all of our bodies is the same thing. So this is science saying that we're all the same thing. Physically, we're all the same thing. And it has to do with electrons and the way they move through time, and negative electrons, which are called positrons. And apparently there's math that says they move backwards through time. And anytime we observe an electron, we're observing all electrons. And every electron in the universe has exactly the same properties. How can that be, right? They can't figure that out. So one of the theories is that there is only one electron that exists everywhere. Think about how many electrons there are in the universe, in 2 or 3 trillion galaxies, each one with billions of stars. How many electrons there are. It's incalculable, right? Imagine if there's only one. And even Erwin Schrödinger, the famous physicist, said that the number of consciousnesses in this universe is 1. So if we reject ourselves, we are rejecting source. We're rejecting the universe because we are a part of it. We are no less a part of the universe than anybody else, anything that has ever existed or will ever exist. We are no less a part of it. You are divine. Yeah, so when we are triggered, that means there is something in our shadow. There's an unhealed wound in our shadow that we're unaware of. But being triggered isn't necessarily a bad thing. It feels bad at the time, and it's an uncomfortable response. It can lead to some behaviors we wouldn't choose. But triggers, and I didn't come up with this phrasing. Somebody else gave me this phrasing. Trigger, if you can think of triggers as breadcrumbs from a teacher. The teacher is inside of us. The breadcrumbs are signposts leading us back to unhealed parts of ourselves. So when you get triggered, calm yourself down and then go, all right, hallelujah. I found a part of myself that is yet to be healed. Thank you for that message. Yeah, your heart keeps beating without your involvement, or that you keep breathing without thinking about it. Yes. Yeah, we all have hearts and breath. We all, those of us who are incarnated into physical bodies, you don't have to think to keep your molecules together, right? Beyond heartbeat, which is amazing, heartbeat, digestion, endocrine system, nervous system, all of these systems that keep themselves going without our conscious input. Sorry, having a little sip of my drink here. All of this existence, we don't have to think about it, right? We just exist. And honestly, we We run into trouble when we push and pull against things, when we have aversions, things we try to push away, and attachments, things we try to pull in. But there are meditative practices where you let go of attachments and aversions. You just witness with no preference. I'm giving you a secret, right? It's not a secret. When I say that, I'm joking. Like, here's a secret technique. There are no secret techniques. Here's a technique. This is an uptime meditation. You don't have to close your eyes. You can do this as you move throughout your day. Have the intention to drop all preferences, that whatever comes up in your experience, you just accept it. You don't push it away. You don't pull it towards you. You eat something that you like, great. You eat something you don't like, great. You see a car painted in a garish color you don't like, great. You see a beautiful flower or a sunset, great. It's all just great. You just accept all of it. And you can walk around taking the position. And what happens when we do that, what happens when we let go of attachments and aversions, is that suffering starts to drop away. Suffering is about attachment and aversion. Yes, pain can happen. Pain can happen, grief can happen, all of that stuff can happen. But what causes us to suffer is attachment to things or aversion to things. If I bang my finger, actually cut my pinky the other day. Be careful if you use a mandolin to cut vegetables, right? I even used the little handle and my pinky just brushed up against it. And it was like, those things are sharper than razor blades, right? And you're running the vegetables back and forth. And I touched it and I gashed my pinky wide. I bled like crazy. Gashed my pinky open and ruined the vegetables I was cutting. Right? So I can look at that and go, oh, wow, that hurts. Or I can look at that and go, oh my gosh, my life is over. This is terrible. How could this happen to me? This is, I'm trying to push the experience away. And when I do that, when you resist the experience of whatever is going on, you actually hold it in place, right? Jung said that which we resist persists. So if I'm like, so I can have pain in my pinky, but that's not the same as suffering. Suffering is a mental thing, right? Suffering is when I'm directing energy towards, not just energy towards the pain, but I'm directing energy towards an emotional experience of the pain. So we can have pain without suffering. We can have all kinds of things without suffering. We can have grief without suffering. I know that seems really weird, right? You can have grief, you can have pain, you can have sadness, you can have all these things arise and then go through their natural cycles and progressions because we don't attach them, we're not clinging to them, or we're not trying to push them away or repress them. Repression is pushing away, but pushing them inside you deeper. That's probably the most unhealthy thing you can do. When I work with clients or when I sit with a student or just even people I know, and sometimes emotions come up and they get sad and they start crying, and the first thing people will do is they'll apologize to me for crying. And I always thought that was a little strange. I'm like, why are you apologizing to me? Like, I'm not offended by you crying. If I were, what a weird thing to be offended by. I understand people don't want you to cry because they feel bad that you feel bad. But I take a different perspective. You're crying because there's emotion that has been trapped inside of you that wants to come up, and it is finally coming up. And it's being released through your crying. Man, a good cry feels good, doesn't it? Have you ever had like a really good cry, just an ugly cry where you just break down and there's like tears and snot and all of that stuff coming down your face? Whether it's a cry because you're sad or you're grief-stricken or just things are so funny. I often laughed so hard I'm crying, right? That's a fun thing to do. And your stomach hurts. Oh my gosh, I've laughed so hard I thought I was going to pass out because I couldn't breathe. My stomach hurt so bad and I'm crying. And what a beautiful experience that is. What a beautiful cathartic experience. We have that for a reason. We have that experience for a reason. It's not to repress it. It's not to shove it down inside ourselves. Right? That's exactly right. It's an awesome release. Crying and laughter are unbelievable releases. Emotion wants to come up and out. It doesn't want to be shoved down inside. If you allow yourself to feel what you're feeling in the moment without attachment or aversion, the emotion will peak and then it will fall like a wave. If I push against it, it will stay in place and never go away until it builds up to a point and I just explode. Right? That happens with a lot of people. Having another, this says tasty beverages. This is a tasty beverage. I'm drinking Blue Shine Lemonade by Maine Craft Distilling at the moment. So it's very tasty. I haven't looked to see how much sugar is in it. Probably not too much. It's not overly sweet. Generally I don't drink stuff with sugar in it, but making an exception here. And I actually don't know how much sugar is in it, so it might not be that bad. So, one of the things that I will say is experience the full range of your experiences. It's only thinking that labels things. This is bad, this is terrible, this is horrible, or this is great, or I don't want this to go away. Face the pain and the patterns, 4 days and 4 nights if you have to, then it's not attached. Yeah, I mean, facing it is one way. I would say accept it, right? Instead of facing it, like, don't think of it as like you're in a head-on battle with it. Do I have any recommendations for blocks? I know that I've blocked out some pain and love. I meditate on it, but I feel stuck releasing it. Yeah, I mean, in order to release a block, you have to locate it. So you have to, it'll be in your body somewhere. And so one resource I recommend for releasing is called the Sedona Method. It's a book. I've recommended it before. I know some people have purchased it for my recommendation. I don't make any money. I'm not related to the organization or the author. I've taken classes with the author, and I have a couple of copies of the book. One of them is signed, and I've given many copies of the book away to people. But the Sedona Method is all about releasing, and so one of the easiest ways to do that is to locate it in your body. Just have the intention, where am I blocked, and do a body scan and find it, and then work on releasing that. And there's a number of ways to do that. Sedona Method is mostly mental. You could go to a trauma-informed yoga instructor and have them help you work the blocks out of your body. So there's all kinds. Oh, okay. Yeah. It's move it up on your reading list for sure. It's a fantastic book. I think there's very recently, I think there's a new version out too. I'm not sure how different it is from the one that I bought, I don't know, 25 years ago or something. But I loved it so much. I heard about it from some other seminar or something, and I was like, that sounds interesting. And I bought a copy of it and I read it, and it was life-changing. And I decided I wanted to go take a course in Sedona Method. So I signed up for a course out in Sedona, flew out to Sedona, and I was married at the time. And my wife just like, I want to do this. And I'm like, well, you haven't read the book, but you can, it's fine. And she went out with me. And so we go, and, if you've never been to Sedona, it's very new agey. There's lots of UFO people out there. There's lots of, people like older hippies and art community and stuff. It's really cool. It is an amazing place. I would live there if I could afford it. And it's just an amazing place. And there are all of these energy vortexes out there, and they're labeled like you can hike out to them fairly easily. You gotta watch out for rattlesnakes, but you can hike out to them. And so we get there. There were a lot of people that had been doing the Sedona Method for a while and maybe knew each other or whatever. And they would come up and they would like give each other hugs and, whatever. And, we lived in Boston, very uptight New England town. And my wife at the time was like, look at me. She's like, nobody better try to hug me. I'm not hugging anybody. I'm like, you don't have to hug anybody. These are just people who know each other, who are like greeting each other, whatever. And By the end of the seminar, she was hugging everybody. And in the middle of it, we had to call some friends of ours. We had some plans when we returned back to Boston, and we had to call some friends of ours. And so she talked to my friend on the phone, and she was so just relaxed, so just like downshifted from where we normally were. Like I got on the phone with my friend, he goes, I don't know what she's taking, but I want some of it. I want you to get me some of that, whatever she has been taking. But it was just doing this work. It was just doing this work of releasing these blocked emotions, releasing the stuff that was going on as it was going on, and really having a sense of beingness. What is beingness? Beingness is the I am sense that doesn't go away no matter what and doesn't change. That's our beingness. You are beingness. You are a process of being, of awareness. That's it. This body is not who I am. I will sometimes refer to this body as me, but this is not who I am. This is not the same body I had 10 years ago or I had when I was 12 years old. If this was me, I would have died a million times over, right? Every day there's new cells. I've lost a limb, like I've had an amputation. I didn't lose part of the sense of I am. That has never changed. The fact that my beard is now white and my hairline is further back than it used to be, and I'm not as I don't I don't heal as quickly as I used to, and all of those things. This body is aging. This body will die someday. The I amness will not. You don't have to believe me. Just take it, take it and check on it. See if that's true for you. Locate I am. Where is it in your body? Where's that sense in your body? You might go, oh, good luck. Good luck locating it. Where's the sense of I am coming from inside your body? Well, I'll tell you something. Like, we know this scientifically, we know that consciousness is non-local. So if you try to pin consciousness down inside your body, you might hallucinate it, but it's not true. This body is a temporary vehicle. I'm using it. I'm riding this body around. I'm having experiences with it. The same is true for my mind. This body and this mind will die and disappear someday. I told you have to understand, sometimes I have a dark sense of humor, and I'm sorry, and this is not my joke, I didn't invent it, but last time I saw my mom, she had taken a bunch of pictures of where she was going to be buried and when she dies and all this stuff. She was talking like, whatever, when you get to be a certain age, you think about your mortality. And I don't like, I came to grips with mortality a long time ago. You don't give, like, I went through lots of shamanic initiations that were all simulated death experiences, had real experiences of death. And you learn not to be afraid of it, because what you are never dies. What you are was never born. What you are is outside of time and space. We're just having an experience right now. A bunch of stuff is coming up that we're experiencing being in a body, but we're not in a body. Our consciousness is non-local. Our consciousness affects the material world out here without us ever touching or interacting with anything. That's been scientifically proven beyond statistical chance, like billions and billions to one beyond statistical chance. That our consciousness affects the physical reality. It cannot be local. It cannot be trapped inside the body. And it affects material processes outside, things that we, Einstein like was really uncomfortable with things like spooky action at a distance, like quantum entanglement, things like that. There are a bunch of things we can't explain, and that's all okay. It's fine. We don't have to know everything. We don't have to explain everything. It's good to understand a few things. But so we have this body to have some experiences. I like this body. It's fun sometimes. Sometimes it's not so much fun. It's okay. But becoming less attached to this body doesn't mean that I'm going to let it, stop eating. And I like eating, so that's not going to happen. But it doesn't mean I'm going to stop eating and stop taking care of myself and like just drop the body and die. It means that at a certain point, this body will die, and I'm not so attached to it that it's not going to be that much of a problem for me. It's not that much of a problem for me now. If something happens to this body, I'm like, oh, well, it's not really who I am. That doesn't mean I don't protect this body. It doesn't mean I walk out into traffic without looking. It doesn't mean any of those things, right? But that's what our ego tells us. Our ego tells us, if you don't believe you're me, if you don't believe you're the body, you're not going to take care of it and you're going to die. Our ego will scream that at us. Don't be fooled by the ego. The ego is a bunch of conditioning. It's a bunch of stuff we learned. It's not reality. So interesting that all religions, faiths try to describe this experience of I am. Yes. Indigenous people and those in touch with nature realize the truth in a different way. Yeah, because it's a very different perspective, right? And it is closer to our natural unconditioned state, right? Human beings evolved in nature. We removed ourselves from it. And indigenous peoples, in many cases, have maintained that close contact because it is part of their spiritual experience. It's part of their identity in many cases. Coming from a Western Christianized perspective, we had stuff like manifest destiny, where we believed, us Europeans, it is our destiny to conquer everybody and kill all the animals and build shopping malls on top of sacred grounds and things like that. So we lost that connection, unfortunately, in many ways. Many people have lost that connection. It's unfortunate, but I think many people are finding their way back because that is our natural state. Okay. What takes us away from spiritual awakening, what takes us away from our truth and takes us out of spiritual self-love is conditioning. Conditioning is just learning, right? Like when Pavlov's dog learned to salivate every time a bell rang. That was conditioning. It was a classical conditioning psychology. So we have what's called the conditioned self. From birth, I'm taught that this body is me, that this me has a name that my parents gave me that I respond to, that the thoughts that I think are coming from me, I don't know that. I don't know that the thoughts that I'm thinking are coming from me. Can you trace a thought back to its origin? Sometimes I try. It's hard, especially with my brain, my ADHD brain. One of the things that I have with ADHD is that somebody will mention something and it will trigger like a memory that will trigger another memory that will trigger another memory that will trigger another memory. And they go, oh, you know what I just thought of, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, that was not even close to what we were talking about. Where did that come from? And I'll be like, oh, let me see if I can trace the synapse chain back to where that thought came from. What did I study in school? I have a degree in communication. I have an MBA. I have a Master's of Science in Information Security. And I have a bachelor's degree in metaphysics. And in many of those, I studied psychology, but I do not have a degree in psychology. So, but I loved psychology. I did almost major in psychology, but I went to a communication school that didn't have yeah, I'm weird and diverse like that. Yeah, it's part of my ADHD thing. It's like, I studied a lot of different things. I am working on a master's degree in metaphysics as well. So I have no idea when I'll be complete with that. I have to write a thesis and pass a bunch of exams. But I do know my thesis topic. My thesis topic's been approved. So I'm gonna, if anybody's interested, my thesis is going to be on spiritual alchemy as a path for, as outlining a path for people to reach a state of universal consciousness. My favorite spiritual book. Oh my gosh. I got to tell you, that's a hard one. I probably own a couple thousand spiritual books. And so I have many that I like and many that I return to over and over again. I think the Sedona method probably would be the one I'd have to pin because it's the one I've read the most times. But I'll read all kinds of stuff. There's another one that I can't remember the title of right now. that I'll try to think of, and maybe it'll jump into my head. But there's a school of thought called the Three Principles, and just by reading their stuff, which is sort of describing the underlying nature of reality and thought and how thought interacts with reality, just by reading the stuff, like, it can really be transformative. So I definitely one that I recommend. I always follow the tangents with people. That's good. You do not have ADHD, or at least your doctor doesn't feel that you exhibit signs. CPTSD brain, though. Yeah, so same here. CPTSD, which can correlate with ADHD. I don't think it's a causal factor, but there's a strong correlation there. You ever read Breaking the Habit of Being Supernatural by Joe Dispenza? I have not read Joe Dispenza's stuff, but he is incredibly popular, and I should probably read some of his stuff, because I don't know enough about it to say anything about it or speak about it. But I know, like, he is probably the biggest spiritual teacher currently, Dr. Joe Dispenza, at least until my book gets published. I don't know. I'm not in competition. I am not in competition with anybody. Backed by scientific evidence. Yes, yeah, that's a really nice thing. I like that. I'm sort of scientifically minded. I worked in a relatively scientific field for a couple of decades, so I jive with that. Oh, it was a good read. Yeah. Well, I will have to check it out. I know he's got more than one book as well, right? But that's like the big one. I'll check it out. I don't think I own a copy of it, so I may have to order it. Sometimes I have so many spiritual books. Sometimes I order a copy of a book, and then I find out I already owned the book. Like, when I'm looking to put it on my bookshelf, I'll find another copy, and I'll go, oh my gosh, like. But sometimes that allows me to give away copies of my books when that happens. I'm a little bit better about it now. I get most of my books from Amazon. Not that I love Amazon, but they will tell me, like, you previously ordered this title in 2016, and I'm like, oh, okay. Let me see if I still have it. It could be in storage or what have you. But that has happened. Like, right now, and this is actually purposeful, but like right now I'm actually looking at my bookshelf where I have two copies of the Sedona Method close to each other. One of them is autographed, and I don't generally use that for reading. The other one I'll use for reading because it can get dog-eared and that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, I read a lot of stuff. Yeah, definitely get it. Give it a read. Let me know what you think. I'm not associated with them, so I don't get any commission or anything if you buy it. When I was in college, we all had to take this speech course. Like, I went to communication school, and we all had to take a voice course. Everybody in the whole school had to take the same course, and the professor, who was the head of the department, wrote the textbook, and we all had to buy the textbook. And he had some deal with the bookstore that they would not buy it back or sell used copies of it, because authors only get commission from new sales. And to me, it was unethical, but nobody ever did anything about it. Yeah, welcome to the live. Please recommend some practices for developing self-love. Absolutely, especially when triggered or disassociating. Gracias. Okay, so let me start by saying this. If you are triggered or dissociating, or triggered and dissociating, that is an emergent state, right? Like, if I were bleeding to death and I went to the emergency room and they were like, I would like, look, I also have diabetes, right? They would say, we're going to treat the bleeding first because that is the most dangerous thing, and then we're going to work on the diabetes. So if you are triggered and dissociating, that is what I consider like an emergency condition or an emergent condition. Like that's the thing you have to take care of in the moment. That's going on in the moment, right? And then get back to work on self-love. That's sort of your long-term project, right? However, your inner dialogue can help. And there are a number of things that help. I'll give you some things that can help with dissociation in particular. As far as being triggered goes, the best thing you can do for that after you calm down is to do shadow work, because your triggers are all the things that can be triggered, the wounds that can be triggered are all in your shadow. But again, like you can't work on that stuff in the triggered state. You have to be in a better state to work on that. So get yourself in a better state, however that happens. So if you're triggered, depends on what you mean by being triggered. So if you are dissociating, probably the best way to get out of a dissociated state is to ground yourself. There's a few ways you can do this. One, I'm a big fan of self-talk. Whatever works for you for self-talk. I can't tell you what that's going to be, but you should remind yourself that you are, therapist friend said, there's no tiger in the jungle, right? We dissociate, we go into a panic attack, or we have our amygdala turns on because we're associating something with an imminent threat, but there's no tiger in the jungle. So we have to calm ourselves down. So breath work is good for that. Grounding. So how do we ground? There's a few ways. One is a really extreme method is to trigger the mammalian diving response. So put your face in cold water. It's got to be your face. Get a bowl of cold water and put your face in it. It will shunt the blood flow in your brain into a different part of your brain. You can look it up if you are interested, but it's called the mammalian diving reflex. Or you could dive into a pool as long as it's safe for you to do so. But you can stick your face in a bowl of cold water. Another method to ground is to take off your shoes and grip the ground with your feet as hard as you possibly can. This is going to draw your attention. What's happening when you're dissociating is your attention is like flying in an uncontrolled manner out of your body. So your energy is going there. You need to bring your energy and attention back into your body and get regrounded when you are dissociating. So grip the ground with your feet, pat your legs and rub your thighs. Okay, this again, it's going to bring your attention down into your body, into your legs. The other thing you can do is if triggering you is triggering a panic attack, again, breathing exercises are going to be a real key here. But you can also do the thing where you look around the room and look for like 5 blue things, then look for like count 5 red things, or count 5 things you can see and count 5 things you can touch in your immediate environment. This is bringing your mind and attention back into the present moment. Bring your attention back to what's going on in the moment. And so that is a counter to dissociation. Those are some counters to dissociation. There are probably lots of other strategies, but I find that those work really well. They work really quickly. Another thing, if you're feeling ungrounded, is to eat something, particularly eat something with a little bit of protein in it that will take a while to digest. If you eat sugar, something that is just straight up carbohydrate, it's gonna pass through your system really quickly, spike your blood sugar, and that might not be the easiest thing. But if you eat something with protein, it's going to digest a little slowly, and again, it's going to slow things down and bring your blood flow back into your body in the way that it should be. So those are my recommendations. I'm glad you found that helpful. So then after that, we work on self-love, right? After we get ourselves in a calm position, we work on self-love. How do we work on self-love? One way I already mentioned is to do shadow work. This is not directly working on self-love, but the wounding in our shadow. We all of us, every one of us has a shame complex. Every one of us since birth is bombarded with messages that we are broken or not good enough or incomplete, or we have not done enough stuff for God to love us, or we have not done enough stuff for society to love us. We are not thin enough or tall enough. We don't have the right eye color, hair color, skin color. We don't make enough money. We're not educated enough. We're not whatever, right? We are bombarded with that stuff. Why? Because it's easy to manipulate people that way. It's easy to get people to buy stuff when you tell them that it's going to make them less worthy of shame, right? Wear these designer clothes, drive this fancy car, drink the right beer, do this, do that. Oh, welcome, welcome. Oh, I'm glad you did too. Thank you so much for joining. Right? If we feel bad about ourselves, we are easy to manipulate. Why? Because we want to feel good about ourselves. Our ego wants us to feel special and important. Why? Because important people are safe. Look at, whatever your feelings about them, look at presidents and presidential candidates. They get Secret Service protection. They get, round the clock bodyguards, the entire country basically looking after them because they're perceived as important. Our ego understands that. We have to feel important. You're already important, but we are constantly being bombarded with messages that we're not, or that we're not special, or that you are 100% unique. There's no individual, yes, we are all part of the same source, but you're an individuated consciousness, and there has never been and never will be another consciousness like the one you are experiencing right this moment. It doesn't happen. Every single reality on this planet is different. My reality is different than your reality. There may be some overlap. There may be some things we agree upon, but not everything, and it doesn't matter. My daughters, I have 17-year-old identical twin daughters. They're genetically identical, raised in the same household, went to the same schools, took the same courses, and they don't agree on everything. Why? Because their realities are different. They are experiencing different realities. So understand that, and understand that your reality is as valid as mine. We don't necessarily agree, but it's valid because you have it. It's valid because it is what your experience is. So one aspect of self-love is just to begin to accept yourself and to let go of the desire to beat yourself up over things. Right? How many times are you like, you forget something? I'm so stupid. Like, I've done it on this talk. I'm like, that's my ADHD brain, right? Like, I'm beating up my brain, and my brain is listening, right? That's human instinct. We've been taught to do that since birth. Is it healthy? No. And so many people in this day and age that get upset. Why do we give kids participation trophies? Why do we tell kids they're all winners? Why do we, like, God forbid we teach a child to have good self-esteem, right? Wouldn't want a child growing up feeling good about themselves, because for some reason that is considered healthy. I can tell you that it isn't. I can tell you that most of the social ills in this world, from drug addiction to crime to warfare, is based on an idea, based on this shame complex, right? It's not enough. I live in an area where the Red Sox are the favored baseball team. It's not enough to love the Red Sox. You have to hate the Yankees. Why? Why do you have to hate the Yankees? They're baseball players. I don't understand it, but people do. And it's because I feel bad about myself, right? I don't have enough self-love. So what I do is I tie my identity to a group of some sort. I tie my identity. I say, I am a Red Sox fan, and the Red Sox are the best team. Like, if I want to feel good about myself, my team has to be the best team. Not only that, but other teams have to be terrible, and people who support the other teams have to be stupid and bad people, right? This is how bigotry happens, of all kinds. We can see it with sports teams. You can see it with colleges. You can see it with countries, with nationalities, with religions, everything, every little group identity we attach to. If you love yourself enough, if you develop enough self-love, a group identity, dropping off your personal responsibility for yourself and taking on a group identity is less appealing. You don't need that. You don't need that to fill in your sense of shame. You don't have to say, I'm an American, we're number one, and not only that, everybody else sucks compared to us. You don't have to say that. You can be proud of where you're from. You can be proud of who it is, but you don't have to hate anybody else. You don't have to see anyone else as less than. You can start to see people as equal to. And this is what I'm saying when I say that self-love is one thing that if we all worked on that, if we all worked on self-love, it would change the world in profound ways that are almost inconceivable. Why? Because there would be less crime. There would be less drug addiction. There would be less suicide. There would be less warfare. There would be less violence, right? I don't have to make those people feel bad about themselves so I can feel good about myself. I don't have to oppress anybody so that I can hoard resources so I can feel safe. Yeah, the shame complex is huge, especially in this present age of social media. Absolutely. Peer pressure is a big component of shame. Yes, 100%, 100%, right? And I have clients who I'm like, I've had thinking of a specific client, and I don't give client details away, but she's talking about like wanting a relationship. Like, great, if that's what you want to do it. Have a relationship. Go figure out what you want and work on that. And she's like, well, I just see everybody around me and they're all happy and they all have these great I'm like, what do you mean? You're seeing people come to your house? No, people on social media. Like, okay, first of all, comparison is the death of joy. Comparison is the death of joy. Comparing yourselves to other people is the death of joy on your behalf. Stop doing it. Stop it. Just cut it out. If you want to have a relationship, have a relationship. Don't want a relationship. Don't enter in a relationship because you see other people having relationships and you're jealous. You're going to get into an abusive, destructive, bad relationship if you do that. You're getting into a relationship for the wrong reasons. If you want to have a relationship, do it, but figure out what your reasons are. So comparison is the death of joy. The second thing I have to say about that is social media is everybody's highlight reels. I don't put stuff, I posted a bunch of stuff about a new puppy we're fostering. I don't post when she poops on the floor or destroys my sandals or chews up a roll of paper towels. I don't post that stuff on there because nobody wants to see that, and that's not cute. So people might think, oh, he's got a perfect puppy that's so well behaved. And that would be a lie. That would be a mistake. You don't know what people's relationships are like based on social media. You don't know what people's jobs are like based on, you don't know anything about people based on social media. Like, somebody checks into a restaurant, they could be lying. You don't know. Right? So stop doing that. Stop looking at social media as a way to figure out if your life is on track. You don't need that. You have an internal compass. If you feel like you need to be in a relationship because your self-esteem, your self-love is off, again, you're going to wind up in, and I've done this, I'm speaking from experience, you're going to wind up in bad relationships. You're going to wind up accepting abuse or getting into a relationship that's not right for you and staying with it for too long and winding up being unhappy. Don't do that. Don't do that to yourself. It's not necessary. If you love yourself, they say, it's kind of a tacky cliche, but they're like, you can't love anyone until you love yourself. I don't think that's true. I definitely loved my children before I loved myself. But I do think as far as romantic relationships, if you get into a romantic relationship and you don't love yourself, you are ripe for a terrible relationship because you're going to accept stuff from the other person that you should not. You're going to have blinders on as to the person that you're dating. You're going to get into situations. I've done it. I'm speaking from experience, right? Same is true for jobs, careers, anything you get into. Don't do it from a place of, I hate myself, so I'm going to do this to make myself feel better. Feel better about yourself, then go get the job. Feel better about yourself, then go get the relationship. Love yourself. One of the reasons why I talk about self-love, and I think that it's so important, I think it's so critical, and I'm going to keep talking about it because it's really, really, really important. You cannot show up as your true self if you don't love yourself. You cannot be your true self. What is your true self? Your true self is you, but the understanding of what you are at your core, the understanding that you're divine, the understanding that you are co-creating the universe as you exist in it. If I am co-creating the universe and I feel really terrible about myself, then I am co-creating a shitty universe. It's as simple as that. So how I show up in the world is a reflection about how I feel about myself. One of the main reasons that I started doing spiritual work and started working on myself was that I had children. And I wanted to be what my children deserved as a parent. I grew up in an extremely abusive household. There was child abuse, domestic violence, drug, chemical abuse. We fled the house multiple times, to survive. We had to flee in the middle of the night to save our lives. That's not a way a child should grow up. It's not a way any child should grow up anywhere. No child deserves to live that way, but I lived that way. And when I was about 12 or 13, I decided if I ever have children in this life, they will never know that fear. They will never know that experience, not from me, no way. And so when I had children, I knew I had to work on myself. I had to get into a place where I could show up as the parent they deserved. Am I always the parent they deserve? No, I'm a human being. But do I have enough self-love that I'm teaching the same thing to them? Do I have enough self-love that I'm not using them to bolster my self-esteem or using them as targets of my abuse and anger? Thank you for saying that. I'm doing very well with all of it now, I should say. It's taken a long time, but no child should ever have to go through that, ever. But I only know that, and it might sound weird, but I'm actually grateful. At this point in my life, I'm grateful for those experiences because I understand trauma. I understand PTSD, I understand CPTSD, and I can help, and I do. I help a lot of people with PTSD. Most of my clients, in fact, have some sort of trauma that they come to me with. And I can only be helpful because I understand it from a firsthand perspective. But you have to understand that, and you have to be in a space of self-love so you can show up in this world. But think about it this way. One of the things that holds us back from living our life to the fullest is that shame complex, right? Let's say, for example, that I wanted to become a piano player, right, as a child. And I'm like, I want to take piano lessons. And my parents say, you can't carry a tune. You're not musical. That'd be a waste of money. What a terrible idea, you taking piano lessons. We're not paying for piano lessons, right? This is just one little example. So I never do that. I never live my dream. And my parents have bashed my self-esteem down. So I'm not even going to try. I'm not even going to try to live my dream. That happens to people left and right over and over and over again. People don't live their dreams. People don't live the life that they want. They don't live their dharma, which is their path. They don't live the life they're supposed to live and have the experiences they're supposed to have. Particularly if you're of a certain age, like I am, and your parents come from a certain generation, like mine did, and they're like, you basically go to college and get a job. That's it. Go to college and get a job. Doesn't matter what the job is. You have a job. You stay in that job the rest of your life. Doesn't matter if the world has changed or whatever, right? So because of that shame that has been given to me very early on, I never pursue my dreams. And how might the world be different if we all felt free to pursue our dreams? If it wasn't shame that held us back from pursuing our dreams, what kind of a world would we live in? What kind of inventions would we have? What kind of art would we have? What kind of music would we have? If everybody was fully capable of following their dreams as far as they possibly wanted and didn't hold back because of shame, right? You know, and there's this idea too that whatever it is that drives you, whatever it is that makes that would make your life worth living and that you love deeply, you have got to do that for a living or you can't do it. I see that over and over again, right? And I know people who are photographers and artists and musicians. I know very few people that make their living, 100% of their living doing that stuff. It's pretty rare, right? Fine artists, especially, right? The fine art world is a scam. It's a complete scam. It's used for money laundering, and there's price fixing by the galleries. There's all kinds of stuff. But I love to paint. I had a painting in a show last year, and I'm going to keep painting. I don't have to I don't have to have my stuff hanging in the Louvre. Would that be cool? Sure, but I'm not there yet, and I don't need that. I don't need that because when I'm painting, I lose time, and I'm in a state of bliss when I'm doing that because it's what I truly love. And when I'm doing what I truly love, and I get the chance, the opportunity, the time to do it, I get better and better at it. And it's not about that either. It's not about getting better at it. I definitely get satisfaction out of, painting a likeness or learning a new technique or something like that. But yeah, I hope in a good way. I hope it hits in a good way for sure. So I think self-love is critical because if we had more self-love, we would have less of the social ills in this world. We would have less addiction, we would have less crime, less suicide, less warfare, less poverty, right? Instead, shame makes us feel like we're in competition with everybody else. And we're not. We shouldn't be. We're different. You and I are different. I don't have to compete with you. You don't have to compete with me. I fully accept you just as you are right now. I love you just as you are right now, right in this moment, right in a second. I don't care if I don't know you. Why? Because if people can hate other people that they've never met, then I sure as hell can love other people that I've never met. That makes much more sense to me than hatred. Right? Does hatred make the world a better place ever for anybody? I cannot think of an instance. It gives some people power for a very short period of time. That's very short-lived in the grand scheme of things, and it doesn't bode well for a peaceful existence either. Right? So if we feel okay, if we feel great about ourselves, if we love ourselves, if we accept ourselves, so how do we begin the process? We begin the process in a couple of different ways. One way is to do your shadow work. I don't care how you do it. There's lots of resources out there. There are books, there are courses, there are free on-site resources. I have tons of videos on shadow work on my YouTube channel. You could contact a shaman or somebody who specializes in shadow work. Lots of different ways to do that, but you got to do it because that's your cleanup work. That's the stuff that's going to root out the wounded parts of yourself. If you need it, if you have trauma, get help with that. Love yourself enough to say, I'm worth healing. I'm worth getting therapy or doing trauma-informed yoga or seeing a shaman for soul retrieval or whatever it is, right? Do whatever it is. Do whatever it is that you need to do. So to do your shadow work. The second part is to pay attention when you are not in acceptance of yourself. When are you beating yourself up? When are you putting yourself down? When are you in criticism? When are you not being loving towards yourself? And just make note of it and put an end to it. Have an intention to be, my intention is to live in love today, and that includes love to myself, right? Take good care of yourself. Have self-care. That includes, very often we confuse self-care with, I'm going to go get my nails done. I'm going to go to the spa. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with those things. If you find them relaxing, that's okay. But it's not enough. That's not really self-care. Self-care is take care of your emotional needs. Yes, your physical needs. Take care of that too. Make sure your physical needs are met. So often self-care is bypassing. I feel lousy about myself, or I feel lousy about this. I'm going to go get a massage so I don't have to think about this for an hour. There's nothing wrong with that. It's okay, but it's not really taking care of the problem, is it? Yeah, Brene Brown is absolutely brilliant. She, if people don't know who Brene Brown is, I don't know where you've been living because she's everywhere. I think she even has a Netflix special. But she is a psychologist who studies very specifically shame and vulnerability. And she has a lot of amazing things to say about that. So definitely check her out. She's got great books. She's got great videos. I think she probably has online courses even, but there's a documentary as well, or it's not really a documentary. It's like a one-woman show where she's on stage talking. She's got TED Talks, at least a couple that I'm aware of too. Well worth checking out, for sure, for sure. So we get into self-love by accepting ourselves fully just as we are in this moment, and by holding the intention that I am going to see myself as whole, complete, and worthy of love right now, right as I am, right in this moment. Right? Intention is powerful. Intention is, my shamanic teacher always said, intention drives the bus. I would say that intention steers the bus, right? Intention is a thought or feeling that directs energy towards a desired goal or outcome. Oh, I'm sorry to hear you're having a rough day. You are so welcome, and I hope that it's helpful. And my love and thoughts to you for during your tough day. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. You are loved here, no matter what your day is like. So you are very welcome to be here, and I'm glad you're here. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Shadow work is also a really important aspect of self-care. Yeah, 100%. Cannot agree more that shadow work is an important aspect of self-care. So again, like, I'm not recommending a specific type of shadow work. There are many different avenues towards shadow work. There is strictly psychoanalytic models. There are spiritual models of shadow work. There are combination models. There are things like internal family systems, which is a psychotherapeutic model. So there's all kinds of ways to approach it. Find the one that works for you. Read some books, watch some videos. I've got, I definitely have some videos on my YouTube channel on shadow work, if that's helpful, and I've written articles about it. Yeah, I get that. You did shadow work and life blew up in a good way or a rough way? Sometimes shadow work, like, you have to repeat it. You have to keep doing it because you have more than, a rough way. Yeah. So I would, from a shamanic perspective, refer to that as initiation. So you triggered an initiation through doing shadow work. And probably if it was rougher than when you started, there are some other, like, your shadow is not just one thing. It's like a container for all of your exiles. And probably what happened is once you were working with one exile, there were others that started acting up as well. And that, that can definitely happen. And people should be aware of that when they're doing shadow work. Most people I know who do shadow work have a better time after, including myself. Oh, your work, family, marriage all blew up. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I don't know your specific situation, but that definitely sounds pretty rough. That definitely sounds like what we would call an initiation from a shamanic perspective. So, um, yeah, it's getting a little warm where I am. I have my AC off so you guys can hear me. On my laptop, which is here. This is my phone. This is my laptop. On my laptop, I have filters, so I have like noise filters and stuff, but I don't have that on my phone. So I turn my AC off when I'm talking to y'all. And normally I do these in the morning, and they're called shamanic coffee hour. But I decided to do this in the afternoon, so I'm calling it the Metaphysical Cocktail Hour, as I'm drinking a cocktail as I'm speaking to you. A canned cocktail, but it's pretty good actually. Maybe they'll let me do a promo. I don't know if like TikTok does alcohol. Probably not. TikTok probably block me for doing alcohol. What I really want, what I need, especially with all the dogs, I need a king size bed. I have a queen size bed. I need a king size bed. I'm hoping someday I'll get sponsorships from like Sleep Number beds or somebody like that, and I'll do lives. I'll do lives from bed. If it, if it helps. I need to manifest that. I need to manifest a king size bed, but yeah. So shadow work is definitely an aspect. Yeah, learning to care and love for yourself better. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's critical, especially when we go through rough times. When we go through rough times, it can be very easy to learn to take on a lot of stuff, right? We can learn to, to beat up on ourselves, especially, and that's really unhealthy. You did find an owl feather today. I hope you live in an area where keeping owl feathers is not unlawful, but just be careful about that. But that's pretty cool that you found an owl feather today. I know lots of people that own feathers. They're not supposed to. I don't collect feathers because I never know. Like, there's you have to check like the national laws. Like if you are a non-indigenous person in the United States and you are caught with an eagle feather, for example, it's something like $100,000 fine for a single feather. But anyway, if it's fine, it's fine. I'm not a legal expert, but oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm sure some people misunderstand what it is. It's not something, unless you specifically seek it out or go to school for study psychoanalysis. I don't think they even cover it in like most people are getting like a master's in social work to become licensed therapists. I don't think it's something that's covered, to be honest, unless you're specifically taking a course in Jung. So the shadow is a term that's coined by Carl Jung back in the early 20th century. So it's not something that is necessarily universally understood in every school and that sort of thing. Most people understand the unconscious mind, and most people understand things like complexes, and that's what the shadow is. It's a set of complexes, which is a set of parts and beliefs and stuff that are all kind of strung together. But I'm glad you found those helpful. But yeah, I know I've done a bunch of videos explaining the shadow and how to start doing your shadow work and that sort of thing. So let me throw this out there, since I started talking about the shadow a little bit. It wasn't my intention on this video, but like I said, I make a lot of tangents. But the shadow is what we call another word for that is exiled parts of ourselves. They're exiled from our conscious mind because they're painful to look at. So they're parts of ourselves that we have repressed and exiled into an unconscious part. That's why they're called the shadow, because we can't really see them. And this contains things like our hidden shame, our psychological wounds that we're not able to access, so traumas and things like that. It also contains secret desires. Most of us have desires we don't acknowledge because they're socially unacceptable, or our parents told us they were wrong, or a religion says that they're wrong, or what have you, right? So they're shameful. Oh my gosh, I have these desires. How shameful that I have these desires that I was born with. So there's that. Okay, so that is how the shadow is formed. It's formed as an exile to protect us from viewing painful things, or things that are shameful, which again, it'd be painful to view things that are shameful. So it contains all of these things. The problem with the shadow is that it is not a silent, it is invisible, but it is not a silent partner in our lives. It acts up. It's why we are triggered. For example, like anytime you're triggered, that is a wound in your shadow being touched. And the triggers, the things, the triggered responses, the responses or the reactions we're having are like breadcrumbs back to the wound. So when you are triggered, and so here's something you can do if you want to begin doing some shadow work in a really easy way that may surprise you. Keep a trigger journal for a month. Anytime you have an emotional reaction to something that feels reactive, or it feels overwhelming, and it is disproportionate to the stimulus. So if I'm in an alleyway and somebody, points a gun at me and threatens me and whatever, and I get afraid and I get angry and all this stuff, like that is a proportionate reaction. But if some guy cuts me off in traffic and I want to run him off the road and punch him in the nose, that is a disproportionate reaction to what happened. So that's being triggered. And why we are having this disproportionate reactions is that the actions of another person or something we encounter are touching a wound that we have in our shadow that is unhealed. So guess what? When you're triggered, people are like, oh, being triggered is a bad thing. Maybe, but it's also a useful thing. It is a useful tool because it lets us know that there's a wound there that hasn't been healed. So our shadow will act up, and it acts up in a number of ways. Our triggers are just one of those ways. Another way that our shadow acts up is through projection. We're all familiar with projection, right? It's where I take the stuff that's in me that's too painful to look at and I project it onto somebody else. Your pet peeves, 100% projection. I can't stand people that are late all the time. Well, there's something about you that is projecting on those people. Maybe you're not late all the time, but maybe you are, maybe you resent maybe you feel like you have to be early all the time and you resent their freedom, or maybe you are resentful because of their, they're not taking your needs into account or something. As soon as people start praising God, I fall over and blame everyone for not having enough faith. Okay. So your shadow is going to act up, and the way that I sometimes explain this is, if you've ever done this thing where you've been at the beach or a pool and you had like an inflatable ball, like a beach ball or basketball or something, and you pushed it under the water, you repressed it. What happens, you push it down far enough, is eventually it's going to pop up somewhere, and it's going to pop up in an unexpected way. It's going to pop up where you least expect it. You're not going to know exactly when it's going to pop up, but it is going to pop up. And the same is true for the stuff in your shadow. It's going to act up. It's in pain. It wants to be acknowledged. It wants to be resolved. There are ways to do this, but it starts by making things conscious. And so a good way to do this is something a teacher had me do, and I was at first resistant to it, and then it turned out to be a really good exercise. And that is to keep a trigger journal for about a month or longer. You can keep it for the rest of your life if you want to, but do it for at least a month. Anytime you have this overwhelming emotional reaction or surprise emotional reaction to something that is disproportionate to whatever is going on, write it down. Write down the date and the time, what happened, and what your response was to it. And that's it. Just log that for about a month. your eyes will be opened up to lots of unhealed stuff inside of you. We all have triggers. You know, if somebody tells you they don't get triggered, they're lying, or they don't understand what being triggered is. But these are all pointers to unhealed wounds. The other thing we can do is start to examine our projections. What is it about other people that drives you crazy? And I don't mean something that actually causes you harm, right? Yes, somebody stealing from me is going to make me angry. Yes, somebody doing violence to somebody I love is going to make me angry. Forget all of that. It's oversimplified. People who are late drive me crazy. People who don't return their shopping cart drive me crazy. People who do this drive me crazy. If they're not harming me, why is that driving me crazy? What is it inside of me that I'm projecting onto them? Also, look at people you idolize, right? Do you idolize movie stars or political figures or church figures or gurus or whatever? Who do you idolize? Why? What is it about them that you want to be, or that you want to be like, or what is it that you want to get that you perceive them having? Those are some ways to start to look at the stuff that's in our shadow. And then surface your hidden desires. This is a challenging one. And I'll give you a couple of tips about that without trying to violate TikTok's terms of service. So when I say hidden desires, this can be sexual desires, but it can be other desires as well, right? I talked earlier about I always wanted to jump out of a plane, right? Do parachuting out of a plane. But I haven't, because I have kids and I see it as too risky. But I've always wanted to do that. So if I had repressed that, it would be a hidden desire. So it doesn't have to be, but it can be your sexuality as well. And the reason why sexuality is rife and it shows up in psychoanalysis so much is because we have our culture, depending on your culture, has really, really unhealthy standards and ideas around sex. And you might go, the Bible says, or God says, or my preacher says, or whatever. No, it doesn't. I guarantee you're wrong. Guarantee it. I guarantee it is an interpretation, and you're wrong. Whatever it is, we can find something that contradicts it. So let's get past that for a moment. And let's talk about what's actually healthy for people. So, in my experience, all people more or less have hidden sexual desires. Some people are more akin to to participating, acting those out, that sort of thing. And some people are not. And it's because they were taught that certain types of sexuality are forbidden or shameful or worthy of mockery or whatever. However, those desires don't go away because of that judgment, right? You still have desires. You still have these things, and we push them down. And I believe that causes many people to act up. It's why we have a lot of the sexual violence that we have today, is that, and not to take the responsibility away from anybody, because it is everyone's behavior is their own responsibility. So, but get in touch with what that is. Have a conversation with somebody that you trust. All right, with that, I've been chatting for an hour and a half, much longer than I intended. I got to run. My love to you all. Work on the self-love, and I will talk to you very soon.